Hi guys, and welcome back. This is For Such a Time as This. I'm Rachel.
I'm Madeline.
And today we are going to be talking about changing the narrative. Changing the narrative. So, in this podcast, we're going to be talking about changing the narrative about how you talk to yourself, how you feel about yourself, how you dress, modesty, purity, kind of going into a deep dive of everything under the sun. So I am super excited for this podcast. I think that between the both of us, we have gathered a lot of information this week.
We have so much to talk about.
So much to talk about. So we hope that you're going to love it. And are you ready? All right, let's get right into it. All right, so this week had been very challenging for me, unfortunately. I was beating myself up a lot. It was really, really hard for me. I couldn't get out of like a little spiral thing, and no matter what I was listening to, it was like always the same. The what ifs were just consuming my mind. It was a lot of you're not good enough, you're not doing enough, you're not where you're supposed to be, just everything in between. I feel like those never go away. Because also with social media, we're just constantly comparing ourselves to everybody and everyone, whether it's celebrities or your neighbor. And I found this quote from like last year. It was like at a Shrine conference, which is with like a church, it's like a women's group and everything. We'll talk more about that. But the quote was, "Don't make yourself bitter trying to be someone else." I think that a lot of us do that way too often. I think that we just get so consumed with like social media aspects of it all, and like God made that person exactly how they needed to come out, and like God made you exactly who you need to be. So you have gifts and you have talents and abilities that your neighbor might not have, like that celebrity may not have. So like dive into those, learn who you are through God and how God sees you. And that is exactly like that is how I spent all week, was diving into what God says about me, because I have been a Christian for such a long time, and like obviously I know all like the little quotes and everything, but like I really needed to focus on that because I was struggling so bad. Like I really needed to know, like I wrote them all down because I was just like I need to make sure that I'm like saying these correctly and not forgetting them. And like God said to me, "You are chosen. You are set apart. You are loved. God will leave the 99 to come and find you. Like He made you perfectly in your mother's womb." Like those were the ones that I like
And those
really
are verses in the Bible.
exactly, like they are verses in the Bible, and He spoke them to me because I needed to hear them. And I really just prayed, and I was like, "God, like please just show me how like you see me," because I needed to feel that confidence like in me, and like and I needed to believe in myself the way God sees me, you know? So that was like a little bit about what I was kind of going through this week. And that's when I think we really just like came to the decision to do this podcast, because I'm like, how many people feel like this on the daily? Like, so yeah.
Because I can remember for me, I'm very grateful I've been through this struggle of like comparing myself, and I really want to go back into like high school. This is where this part was really hard for me when I didn't know Christ and I didn't know what God says about us, and I remember not feeling comfortable in my skin. I remember I always dressed a certain way, so others would appreciate it, and I realized there's no value in that because when I would get looked at, I would be like, I don't like people looking at me.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, like I get like that all the time, especially if I'm wearing a bathing suit or something, and that really has changed a lot because obviously I want to talk more about it after about modesty, but I think the big thing what I'm trying to get into is that your purpose and what God has called you to be is different from what the world says your purpose is. Like the world wants us to focus on our appearances, where God wants us to focus on our heart postures. And I have a great verse to talk about that. So if you go to Romans 12, verse 2, it says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." I love that verse because it just shows you exactly what I just said. Like, we and transform our minds to what God says who we are and what we should be and not what the world says.
Yep.
And people might be wondering, well, what does God say our will should be? And I have another good verse. So if you go to Colossians 3, one of the verses, I'm going to paraphrase it here because there's a lot in this paragraph. Obviously, go read it for yourself and really see what the meaning is behind it. But what I'm taking away from it is verse 2. It says, set your minds on things above, not earthly things, which you talked about.
Yep.
But even more of that, God tells us literally how we can think of things. And I just want to read this because I think it's so valuable. To, like, if we can transform our minds, like Romans said, to these things, we will be more happier. So it says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you give grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you, and over all the virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace, and be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, songs of the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your heart. And whatever you do, whether in the word or deed, do it in all the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. I know that's a lot, but what I'm trying to show our audience here is that the Bible tells us, like, God has showed us ways that we can think and ways that we can be when we are feeling like, oh, I don't like the way I look. You know, I don't like the way I look in this bathing suit. I don't like the way I'm dressing right now. And it's like the world wants us, again, to just focus on those things. But God is saying, if you want to feel at peace and feel joy, maybe don't focus so much inward, but focus more on your outward, like being towards others, being kind, being compassionate, being loving, being in His Word, giving thanks that you're here. Like those things will change your purpose.
Yeah.
Because your purpose shouldn't be just about what you look like on social media. Because unfortunately, I feel like a lot of teenagers under us, and like I'm not saying I'm any better, but Instagram is like a place where you're going online and you're just like, oh, I need to post this picture because I want to get this many likes to feel good about myself. And God says, no.
Yeah.
Like, that is not what life is about. Life is about being grateful to be here. And life is about being kind and compassionate to one another and feeling that deep emotions that society nowadays wants to suppress.
Yes. Yep. And when you were saying that, it was like the video that you sent me. I don't remember what her name was, but she was like, when you were dressing a certain way, this can like tie into like modesty and stuff too. Like when you were dressing for attention for yourself, you're taking it away from God. Like you were supposed to dress modest to bring attention to yourself, to bring glory to God. So it's just like that was like a whole thing that like kind of shifted my perspective on what I was wearing and how my appearance was, and so I just thought that was like a really beautiful thing. And once I like started dressing like a little bit more modestly, I was like, wow, I'm actually really comfortable. Like it just like changed like my whole like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So my like demeanor on
It
like
did.
that. So
And I want to talk about it since we are
Yeah.
talking about modesty. Well, in 1 Corinthians, it does talk about like in the parts of your the parts of your body that are unpresented are treated with special modesty. So that word modesty is used in the Bible. It's not like a term that we just make up and we're like, oh, we're gonna be modest. Like God says, like those parts of ourselves are supposed to be modest in the sense of like you're not wearing tight clothing for everyone to see. And it's not because you don't want to look good. It's just because when you're doing that, you're not only drawing attention to yourself, but there's another verse in the Bible. What if your brother or sister is struggling with like porn or with like visual, like they're tempted by the way you look?
Yeah.
And if you're gonna wear those certain clothes, your brothers and sisters, meaning like your fellow Christians, you go to see at church or whoever you go hang out with, they might be tempted by you just because of what you're wearing. And I feel like that's a big thing that people don't really put in perspective too. And also on top of that, like modesty again, back to what I said, like what I used to wear in high school, I was like, I didn't like getting looked at. I still don't. Like I don't like people looking. And I think when I start wearing more dresses or just wearing a little bit less tighter clothing, it's more of like they see the beauty of my personality more than the beauty of my body. And I want to be known for that and not for the way I look.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was beautiful. I
Thank you.
loved how you said that.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's just like really important too. And I don't know if it's because like I'm just like getting older, but I'm like I really don't love wearing super tight clothes
Yeah.
anymore. And I'm like, oh, this is just so frustrating. I'm also like now having to throw out a bunch of clothes
too.
because I'm like my body is like changing. Like I'm not 19 anymore, and that was like something that I was struggling with too. Like last week, I was like looking at pictures, and I was like, I don't look like that anymore. This is ridiculous, and I just like spiraled. I was like, how the heck? Like, so it was like a whole thing. It was like when you're just like sad on your birthday. That's what I was going through.
Sad on your birthday.
Yeah. I was like, dang, I'm 25. Like, that's crazy. So, yeah, that was really, I think, what started the whole spiraling.
For me, I really love Milena Ciniati. I think
Yes,
her
that
name
was the
is.
video that you sent me. Yeah.
She has so many,
Yeah.
and they're old, but she has such an impact. And when I tell you, like, she's a woman of God, like, she's a woman of God, she inspires me to be better each day because her videos are beautiful and she's changed so much. But, like, the videos on modesty and vanity and everything, like, I would love to do a whole podcast on that
Yeah.
because I think it's worth talking about. I know we talked about it a little bit, but I think there's so much more beauty to it. And it's just, it really does affect like changing the narrative. Like, are you going to always worry about what you're wearing? Because when you're doing that, even we can go into the topic of idolization. Like, you don't want to idolize yourself.
Yes.
And that's a sticky situation. Like, yes, you want to be confident. You want to feel like good, but your confidence should come from the Lord. Your confidence should be, God gave me another day on this earth. God gave me good gifts, like being able to speak, being able to teach, being able to serve, being able to prophesy, whatever it is. Like those are the gifts that God gives you,
Yes.
not your looks.
Yes.
And the world is saying your looks is all that matters. Your looks are gonna get you here, and it's like, no, I don't want to think that way. I want to live out Romans 12, where it says, transform your minds away from this world.
Yep. Exactly. And I was like, there were so many, like, literally the set your mind on things apart where, like, that one was the one that, like, hit me so hard because I was just praying and I was like, God, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, why is this? And, like, God was just like, fix your mind. Fix your mind. Like, you need to, because you really need to change the narrative because you're going to sit and be depressed all the time if, like, you don't change the narrative and keep seeking me. And, like, I think that was what he wanted me to get out of that week was where I was like just so down on myself, and he's like, but you live for me, so why are you so sad? Why do you keep comparing your gifts to other people? Like, run your race, stop comparing yourself. Like, it is just like you are made perfectly in his image. Like, he made you in your mother's womb before like your mom even knew you. Like, he knows you, he knows what you need. Like, stop comparing yourself. Like,
and like to the part where you said God made us in His image, and He said that's in Genesis.
Yes.
For, the first book of the Bible, it's in Genesis. He made us in His image. And my heart breaks when I think God made me a part of Him, but I don't value it.
Yes.
I'm like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And obviously we're not perfect, but I'm just saying like that makes me upset because I'm like, if I have a piece of God in a sense where He made me so, like I know one of my gifts is teaching. I love to teach others, and to think that I'm never good at teaching, that makes me sad because I'm like, well, no, God made me in His image, so I must have value.
Yeah.
I must have a purpose here, and I should not just listen to the world that might say like, you're not good at this.
Yeah.
And it's just like crazy. That's something that hit me. Where I'm like, I don't want to think that way.
Yeah.
Because He doesn't want us to think that way either. He loves us, even though we don't love Him.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Yes. And I think with like the whole purpose thing, I think that was like something I was like constantly struggling with too, where I was just like, I feel like I don't have a good enough purpose, but I was also like teetering. And obviously, when you feel like that, that's like the enemy trying to play games with you, trying to psych you out, trying to put you down because he knows how
strays from your
far,
weakness.
yeah, he knows how far you're gonna go with God on your side. Like, so when I was like constantly going back and forth, I was like, I know I'm made for more. I know that I have value in the Lord. Like, I
He says
know, yeah, I know that God has got such great plans for me, and that's what I want. Like, I don't want my life without God anymore. So once, like, I just kind of changed the narrative on that, I felt like I was like, okay, like, it's gonna be okay, but you will always still struggle with the what ifs of the world and whatever the temptations of the
Oh my
world
gosh.
are. Like,
Because
what
you
is
just
it?
said that. Because you just said that. Something I heard Kean Clark say. I'm not going to take the credit, but there's a verse in there that Jesus said to his disciples, "Just because you follow me doesn't mean you're not going to have trials and tribulations."
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry, I don't know if he said it to his disciples, but he did say that.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important because a lot of people will look inward on Christians and be like, "Oh, well, your life must be perfect," or some Christians will be like, "Oh, if I have Jesus, then I don't have to worry about anything."
Yeah.
He said, like, I have overcome everything,
Yes.
so you can trust in me,
Yeah.
but you will still face trials in
Yeah.
this world.
Because Jesus faced everything that we face. That's why he came here to say, like, I know what you guys are going through. I've been through it all. Like, so, and he overcame it. So, like, if we face towards him and keep facing him, he will make a way out of whatever we're going through. And he'll be by your side, whether we get through it or not, you know? Like, he's in it with us. So, I think that's a really
And for our audience, like, listening in, like, just know that, like, when we're talking about how to focus inward on Jesus, we're talking about his word, we're talking about what God says in the Bible. Like, most of the things that we're saying here is strictly like words that Jesus spoken and like what he says that we can trust in him with. So I just want to make that clear for people. Like, well, how do we get that?
Yeah, yep. I think I heard this one thing. I don't know if it was at Shine or if it was one of the videos, one of the thousand sermons that I watch. But somebody said that the Bible is a love letter to us. And I think that was such a amazing, beautiful thing because it really like going through this week, like just having his word. Like when I tell you, I was like sobbing into my Bible. I was sobbing into my Bible, and it was just like him just answering me and me just being like, okay, God, like when I just want everybody to know because if you're not there yet, if you're not like a full blown Christian yet and you're still trying to figure it out, really just take a second and just say, God, I don't know where you want me to start, but I'm willing to start. So open your Bible and just read, and I swear He will answer you because you are making contact with Him. Like we said the last time, God is a gentleman. He's gonna sit at your heart and knock, and He is just waiting for you to invite Him into your life. So yeah, I think that just needed to be said because we've been getting a lot of questions, which we love, and we've been getting a lot of DMs about, okay, like where do we start? How do I do this? How do I? So we like you said, we don't have it all figured out, but we're trying. So and we hope that we can help you guys.
Yes.
Out as
And
well.
like based off of like this topic, changing the narrative, please like also realize like it might look like we have it all together and we know it all, but we don't. And we want us to be so like clear on that
Yeah.
because we struggle with this on our own. So we
Yeah.
we never want our audience to also feel like we have it all together.
Yeah.
And we don't because we don't. We have technical difficulties. We don't
You should
have
have seen us today.
Yeah. Like we just don't have it all
We
together.
don't.
But
We
that's
don't.
okay because we're showing you that it's okay not to have it all
Yeah.
together by having God in your life. So
Yeah, I think that was that's beautiful.
it was. I want to go back on comparing.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I have another verse
Mhm.
that I really love, and I know there's a couple different parts in the Bible that speaks on God, the Holy Spirit being one body but having different parts.
Yes.
And it really hits because I'm like, okay, when he talks about it in 1 Corinthians 12, I highly recommend you open your Bible and read that all because I'm not going to read it all here because it takes too long. But please do so you get the full picture. But basically, if I'm going to paraphrase it or what I think it says, sounds like. It's saying basically that just like a human body has different parts and it has different functions and stuff,
Yep.
same as the Christians who have the Holy Spirit. We
Yes.
all have different gifts. And
Yes.
First Peter talks about this too, that we should be stewarders of our gifts. Like we should give thanks to the Lord for our gifts. And I really think that's important when it comes to comparing, because if you are comparing, like, if I were to compare myself to you or vice versa, like, we could sit here all day and be like, oh, you have this and I don't, and I have this and you don't, whatever. But it's not about that. It should be about what God gave us and how do we lift each other up
Yes.
with our gifts.
Yes. Yep.
And I think what's more important on that is like going further, like on social media or in friend groups, like you can get quick to be like, I want to compare this and this and this, but I think centering yourself in God first and being like, no, God gave me my own gifts. I
Yeah.
don't need to be jealous or anything, and instead I should uplift whoever I see and with whatever God gave them gifts with.
Yes. And with that verse, because I read that verse too, because he gave me that one too.
wow.
I was like, it is. When I read it, I was like, okay, like he put our bodies in the image of him, and like if you don't like something in that image, basically, I was literally standing in the mirror, being like, okay, like you know what? Instead of tearing my body down and being like, I don't like my stomach, I don't like my face, I don't like whatever. Like I was like, you know what? I looked in the mirror and I said, I love you, and that's sometimes it's hard, and sometimes you'll do it crying, and sometimes you really it's just changing the narrative of that and changing your mind, and also with this thing, we see ourselves in the mirror 50,000 times a day. So I just want to put that out there. So everybody that you think is like so high and mighty and so beautiful, like think for a second, just for a second, and just think of the people that have never seen you in your life before, and just think of what they think when they see you. Because
You have no
you
idea.
have no idea. Like they might think you're the most like beautiful person
And
in the
people
world,
always don't say
and they
it.
don't always say it, and like they also like might be intimidated to tell you stuff like that. But also, it's none of your business what people are thinking of you. So that's like a whole nother thing. Like there was 50,000 things that my head was saying when I was reading that verse, and it was all of those. Just like one, it's not your business what they think of you. Two, what if they think that you're perfect and they're comparing yourself to you? Also, I think that there are so many things that are going on in people's heads that they are comparing and whatever, tearing their own selves down, that they're not even concerned with you. So, like, there are just so many different things that I got from that one verse.
And I got two other things completely different. So I also got that, first off, if everyone was blind, what would you care what you looked like?
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be able to see yourself.
Yeah.
So why do we obsess over what we look like?
Yeah.
Maybe you need to fast from the mirror, because God talks about fasting in the Bible. And it's not just about food. You can fast your phone if you're having trouble comparing on social media. You can fast from the mirror if you don't like what you see in the mirror, whatever it may be. And the other thing I was going to say, Proverbs 18, it says, the tongue can either speak life or death. And when you're saying other people, like, you know what people do say? They may not say you look good, but a lot of times on social media, they'll tell you you look bad.
Yeah.
You don't look bad. You look bad. And I think Proverbs 18 is a great verse for speaking life or death. You have the power of the tongue, of your mouth, which we will do a whole podcast on too, but you have the power to change the narrative and think and say, like, great good things about yourself or bad things about yourself.
That's why I was like, when I went into the mirror that day, I was like, instead of tearing down my body and tearing down everything, my hair, my face, whatever, I'm going to say, you know what? I love you today, and I'm choosing to love you and just bring light. And I felt great. I was like, wow, look at this, great. This is so nice. I have like, my brain just was like, okay, because your brain, like, your brain is so technical. So it's just like, there are so many little things. But if you really just are like, you know what, I'm going to put that thought away. I'm going to stop that thought from happening completely. And again, it might open like other things, but it's just being like, okay, I'm choosing to think life over myself today. I'm going to say that I'm beautiful and that I'm smart and I'm courageous and I'm bold and everything that God has said about me in the Bible.
Yes.
That is it.
That's amazing. That was awesome.
Okay.
I love that.
So yeah, that's what I did this week. Was at the end of the week, after suffering and going through all the frustrations, I was like, you know what, we're done, and I'm choosing life.
That's so funny. So I have a different question for you.
Okay.
What about people that idolize themselves? Not the people that tear themselves down. What about the other spectrum?
So I actually have a verse for that, and that is in Philippians, and it's humble yourself as Jesus has by taking the nature of a servant. I think that there are times, and I feel like everybody is either so high and mighty on themselves, or they're just so very low on themselves, and I think that it's just kind of finding a middle ground, maybe. But I like that verse because however you're feeling, if you are very like conceited, and if you are very like vain, I guess, it's really just kind of being like, okay, let me just take a step back from the mirror and just humble myself as Jesus has humbled him. Because Jesus was the most amazing person ever, and he was still washing feet. So it's just like putting that into perspective of, if Jesus is washing feet, you can wash feet too. If Jesus is like a servant, like I can be a servant too. I think that I hope that made sense. Like, so yeah, I think that that's just like a really humbling thing, because whatever, and like there are times where I feel like I shouldn't be here. I should be way further than I am, and I should be doing this. And then I'm like, let me take a step back and let me just sit down for a minute, because no matter what my position is of work, or no matter what I'm doing, I need to still humble myself, because Jesus was always washing. Jesus was eating with people that were less than him. He was with everybody. He was friends with everybody. He was friends with all the sinners. So I think that it's really just putting it into perspective of, hey, you know what? Jesus was still serving. Jesus was still serving, and I think that
He led a really good example
He did.
of like how to be again as a person. Like you said, like he was God. He is God. So it's like he wasn't like I'm God, and like like with this.
He
Smart
wasn't like,
attitude.
you can wash my feet. I'm not washing your feet.
No.
He was like, how about you sit down, tell me what's going on, and I'll wash your feet. Like,
And I think that's a really good example
Yeah.
with idolization for sure. And I think with the idolization thing, like you looking in the mirror and you saying like, oh, yep, I look good. I'm posting on social media. Everyone see how I look. Blah blah blah. It's back to that modesty thing of like you shouldn't want to let another person stumble in their feet. And I think that for me is where I would never want to be super confident or rub it in someone's face, either if that's a guy because he's struggling with his, sexual temptations, or if it's a woman who's like, oh, she looks so beautiful and I look like crap because she's always flaunting her looks. Like
Yeah.
I never want to be in those positions. I want to be humble for the Lord, but I also want to protect myself, but also protect others around me. And I think that,
Yeah,
I just want people to know like idolizing yourself can get very tricky, and making sure that other people around you respect it. And also on top of that too, like if you are looking for a husband one day too, like idolizing yourself can also get tricky because you're just worried about yourself and not necessarily like who your partner is gonna be in a sense. And yeah, I don't know where I was going.
it's okay. I think I got where you're going with that, and I think it's just kind of like, it's interesting to see, because once I started changing the way I dress, if this is where you were going, Andrew liked it a lot more.
Yeah,
Like he
that's
thought that I
exactly
was so. That's where you're going. Yeah, he was like, wow, you just look so beautiful. Like, and it was just like, he's like, you always look beautiful. Like, I love you in
Yeah.
sweatpants and a t-shirt, but he was like, you just. I walked out in like this outfit specifically, and he like started crying, and I was like, what are you gonna do on our wedding day? Because like that's like, you're gonna like fall like baby, like what the heck? So I just thought that was like a really interesting thing, because I was like, what the heck? Like,
And think about this further too, like if we want to talk about and do a whole episode on like purity and stuff, but if you are saving yourself for marriage, I don't know what but if you're saving yourself for marriage and you are protecting your body and you're wearing modest clothing, like how much more is your husband or the guy you're dating gonna be so excited to see you one day? Because he doesn't see you every single day, so he he has something to look forward for. And same to you, vice versa. Like if your boyfriend or whatever is always has his shirt off and like whatever,
Yeah.
like you know, like you have more to look forward to and more excitement for that next chapter in your life because you are just like protecting what is to be valued that God says is supposed to be valued instead of just letting everyone see it. And I think that's also something I was gonna say came back is like when you are posting on social media, the narrative you have is I care about what everyone else thinks. And then when you're with your partner and then when you get married, you already have all these thoughts and opinions about other people and you can't really focus in on what the one person who is supposed to be there,
Yeah.
what they think of you. Because you're just like, well, social media said this. So
Wow.
I just think like that
Yeah.
for me like was really changing the narrative for me was I'm gonna stop putting my worth on social media. I'm gonna stop going to places because let me tell you, I used to go out just to take a picture and post it. Like seriously.
No, yeah.
Or like I'll still like I'm like, oh, we have to get a picture. And I love pictures. I love pictures. I grew up taking pictures, and I will always love pictures. But changing the narrative, being like, I don't need to post this. It doesn't need to look perfect because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for deeper connections, and I'm here because I want to be here. I'm not here because I'm gonna worry about later what my platform thinks of me.
Yeah.
Because all that matters, who thinks of me is God.
Yeah.
And one day my husband,
Yes.
if I get
Yep. Audience.
yes.
No? So I think that was like a really beautiful thing. I had something to go off of that and I completely forgot it.
okay.
But yeah, I love that because I'm the same way. We want to take pictures. Like I love pictures. Like I don't know, my mom that's kind of like all I have from like my dad is like pictures and videos. So like I value pictures
Me too.
a lot. I remembered what I was gonna say. I ended up shutting off my life cam because I was like, I think it's stupid. I think that I'm constantly trying to be like, oh my God, how many likes did I get? Like valuing my worth off of likes. We're not doing that. Like I'm not. Yeah.
Taking it one step further, it's like, are you gonna take your Instagram profile to the grave? No.
No.
It's not gonna be there.
Yeah.
Your likes are not gonna be there. Those comments
So,
aren't gonna be there.
yeah.
What's gonna be there is if you feel like you have worth because God gives you worth.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Exactly. I think. Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like something that I ended up doing, and I was like, you know what, from now on, I'm gonna just, because I think that it's not important. Like, it's really not that important as to like how many people are seeing and liking.
So for me, I think I really appreciate when my boyfriend says I'm beautiful and really pretty because I don't have 50 people saying it,
Yeah.
so I don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
And I think that I was like, because
Yeah.
I don't really post. Sometimes I do still, because I'm like, oh, like this was a cute photo, like I'll
Yeah.
post it. But honestly, like I think in a few years I might get to the point where I don't really care to post on the internet because at the end of the day, it's like I don't care what people are saying, and a lot of people do, and even if it's your subconscious, because I'm telling you, like, what are we posting for
Yeah.
here? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
We probably are posting because we want to see what people think of us.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that matters anymore. I think what matters is if you feel like you have worth and God gives us that worth, and if you don't have it in Him, you're not gonna feel worthy because the world might say you look good one day and the next day they might hate on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But God will never do that.
Yeah. Exactly. That's so beautiful. I love that. Yeah. That reminded me of like a song. I don't know if you've heard it. I'm excited to read it. Take the World, Give Me Jesus. Have you heard of that
so.
one? Oh,
Yes, that is
such a good song. But yeah, that's been like repeat. Like on repeat. Like
Yeah.
all week. Take the world and give me Jesus. Because I'm sick of the world, man. I'm sick of it. But yeah, I think that he's just got a lot more for everybody, than what it is, and just focusing on likes, and that's not what God intended. But, yeah.
And I think what we can close it in on then is how can we guard our hearts and our minds?
Yeah, okay, I'm so excited to talk about this. I was so excited for this podcast because I just went through it, you guys. So I was so excited to talk about it. I think that like guarding your heart's basically just to take it all in from the video and just put it on one little thing. Guard your hearts, guard your minds of what you're watching, what you're listening to, like worldly music, like secular shows. Like, what are you watching? What are you honing in on? Like, what are you really, what are you consuming? Like, just screen time, maybe limit the screen time. That's what I'm really trying to do right now. Like TikTok and Instagram, social media, because there are days like work where I'm like, work is dead and I'm just like this. And instead of doing this, like scrolling, I'm like trying to read my Bible and pick up verses and watch sermons. Like,
I bet you're so much
oh
happier.
my gosh, it's so much easier, and I feel like I'm just like,
because you don't.
wow,
Yeah.
like, you know?
Because you always don't have someone down your throat saying like, oh, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. Because you come across those videos all the time. You're like, oh, now I have to worry about my pillows expiring.
Yeah.
Something so random. But seriously, you're like, what the heck? I never knew that. There's mold in my bathroom. Like, I don't know. Like, they just, the videos that I come across, like, scare me. And I'm like, everything's bad. And you're like, no.
Yeah.
Like, it's better not to know. I know,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's biblical, but there's a saying. I don't know if I should say it because it's not. I don't know if it is. Maybe it is.
What is
But
it?
there's a saying. It's like, out of sight, out of mind. I don't know.
I don't know if it's biblical, but that is a good saying.
Because it's like, if you're not in
We'll
front
have to
of
find
it,
it.
but you, oh wait, it's not. You want to know why it's not biblical? Because you don't want to be ignorant. Like, right?
Oh, like arrogance.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. We can scrap it. But still, out of sight, out of mind. It's good.
Yeah. Because, you know, like, if you're not visually seeing everything all the time, you're not worried about it.
Yeah.
And I honestly, like, I used to feel like, oh, I'm missing out on so much.
Yes.
I don't know what's
FOMO.
going on.
Yeah.
But guess what? If people really cared about you, they would text you.
Yep.
Why do you need anything more than that?
Yeah.
If people really thought, if your friends really thought you were beautiful, they would tell you in person. They would
Yep.
take pictures of you in person. They would, you know, like those are memorable things. It's not your friend posting you for your birthday on Instagram and you getting upset because your other friend didn't. No, if your friend said happy birthday, you want to text and wants to spend quality time with you, that's what should matter. That's changing the narrative.
Yeah. That was great.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the verse I would love to end on is Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths of your feet. And be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil. That
is good.
That's good.
That just like made me think of something like completely different. Oh, I was watching a video this week, and it was something about, it was a Stephen Furtick and some other guy, and it was just like a podcast, and it was like, instead of honing in on the big picture of everything, the future and all this stuff, what are you gonna do in the next hour? And I was like,
yeah, Matthew says take one day at a time, but you can even go back and 1 minute at a time.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, like that just like really like,
because you never know. Like, you should. I think there's another verse in here. It's like, who says? Like, I think it's in. I don't want to say what it's in. But it's in here somewhere. It says something about who are you to decide what you're gonna do tomorrow?
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Do not worry about tomorrow. Yeah, all of them. And it was just like, wow, that really like, that reminded me of that. I don't know why.
What
but
I love is give careful thought to the paths of your feet.
Yeah.
Like, where are you going? Where are you taking yourself? Are you taking yourself to wrong crowds? Are you taking yourself to people who always put you down? Are you taking yourself to bad environments that maybe you shouldn't be in? Are you walking straight? Are you walking towards God's gift for you? What are you walking towards? And then the other one is like, don't turn right or left. Keep your foot from evil. If you think about it, like, I heard this somewhere that like horses, when they race, have blinders on. And they're not looking at who else is running the race. You're running your own race.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's again back to comparing, like, just closing in on it. Like, don't worry about what other people are doing around you. What are you doing and where are you going to go? Because where you're going to go is just as good as where someone else might go, and it might not be at the same time that you want it, but God has the plan for you. So God's plan for you is specifically for you and it won't be for anyone else. So keep going forward and don't look to other people.
So good.
Yeah. And yeah. And then another thing, like keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Again, speaking life or death. Proverbs 18. Just like, are you going to be speaking into people, into yourself? Or are you going to be speaking negativity? Are you going to be complaining? Are you going to be, like talking down? And we'll do a whole video on that too. But I think that's just something else to keep on your mind. And then the other thing is, above all else, guard your heart from anything you do that flows from it. Guard your heart, like watch what you're seeing, watch what you're letting like take over and like letting like change your emotions.
Yep, because like whatever you're worrying about, like becomes an idol. And we don't want idols because God is bigger than our idols.
We should do a podcast on idolizations. I think
Yeah.
it's much needed just so you know what that's all about.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about it a lot, but we didn't really explain it.
Yeah, I think that is going to be one of our next topics. We are so excited to go into. We have so much planned. We are so excited to like deep dive into everything coming up. So we have really, really good videos coming up. So we hope you love this one.
Yes. So yeah, we hope that you enjoyed this video. We hope that you took something from this. And seriously, if you have any questions, just please leave them down below. We would love to answer them and support you guys through your own walks with the Lord. And I just hope that you feel encouraged. You feel like you were able to take something away and actually apply it to your whole life. And with that being said, we hope to see you next time for such a time as this.
Bye, guys.